Hey, good morning, Drummond.
And how you doing?
Hey, very well.
Good.
Just getting set up here.
Awesome. Yeah. I just worked late last night, so I'm a little foggy this morning, but I was like, oh, I don't want to miss this meeting. Too many things happening over here.
Good.
Yeah. Anything Tim's paying attention to, I need to pay attention to.
Wait, where's that squirrel?
Hello.
Hi, Winston.
Hi. Hi, Elaine.
How you doing, Wenjing?
I'm doing good. Let me put this page on. Sorry, I'm running a little bit late today.
Uh,
Okay. I'll be wait. I'm just taking attendance here. But here. All right. How's everyone doing?
Crank along.
Our Discord channel have a lot of interesting discussions. Just highlight that. Somehow the discussions I think moved from the GitHub to Discord. It's easier, I guess.
Yeah, I actually just put a comment in the main channel being like, we got to figure out what we're actually doing here because it's unclear whether I should be in Discord, into the GitHub, how those two channels relate to each other. We got to do some thinking about how those two things fit together better.
Well, let's
Yeah,
resolve that
yeah,
on
yeah,
Slack.
yeah.
Let's take it up on Slack. Figures.
It would be nice to be in one place and all together. That would be perfect. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
the reality is the place.
Roman, you have any wise suggestion? This happens quite often, right?
Yeah, well, so two observations. One, I was able to drop my subscription to the New York Times because now all I have to read is the AI and Human Trust Discord.
Right, right.
No, seriously, it is the most. I like read all the other channels to make sure I'm staying current, and then I'm like, okay, now I can look at the AI and Human Trust channel because there's always a link I've got to follow, and then I got to think about this, and it's just like, oh, it's a brain buster. I do have a suggestion, which is that anything that is a substantial discussion, the way to
Right.
do it is start that discussion in GitHub because it's a much richer environment for doing that, and then just put a reference to it in Discord. Just say, hey, we're going to talk about this over in this discussion, and that way people will follow it over, and you just get GitHub discussions are just a lot, richer. Wow, how else can I put it? It's not that Discord's bad for it, but Discord is better for light discussion, and GitHub, you can go as
Yeah.
deep as you want. You can branch off. You can, yeah.
I,
Anyway, so that's my suggestion.
I found like it is difficult to conduct complicated discussions in Discord, but
Yeah.
the express the main point and refining it, etc., is so much easier to do. Once it gets too complicated, it can't follow. It's like it's very hard.
I mean, the problem is that there's not one application with multiple views of the data. The user can't really configure their views of the conversations very well. So that's the fundamental issue. And we need to have a user-controlled unified feed where all of our information is prioritized and we only have to look in one place. But until that day,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I'm more of like I don't really have any preferences myself, but I would read both, and I think in the end, when all the information need to come together, it's the specification, right? So we would whatever information and conclusions we come up with will be reflected in the document itself. The sorry, the discussion channel also is better for preservation. I think searching in Discord is much harder. So you have to go back, say, hey, I remember seeing something, trying to exactly find it is a lot hard to do. And so I know some people strongly prefer one way or the other, but I guess I'm open to, have both and we will figure out a way to sort of like just informally, pasting links back and forth if that's needed.
yeah, right. Like in other words, there could be pinned at the top, perhaps a list of the links. Can you do that in Discord? Can you pin things
I
in
think
Discord?
we can. Yeah, I will try that. That's a good
Why don't we
idea.
try
I'll
and
put
pin
the
all the links to GitHub discussions to the top of the
yeah.
Discord,
So
however that
yeah,
works.
so there's a one overall link always, visible there. Just remind people that, if somebody new in Discord doesn't know this, they wouldn't be able to find it. Great idea.
I mean, it's too bad we can't show which ones are active, but
Yeah. So let me put
But
a
what
note
I was
here.
saying, I think the way you can, if a discussion is going active, just a one-liner in the posted Discord saying, "Hey, check out this discussion," followed by the link. Then you can know that if you're keeping an eye on the Discord, you'll know, hey, something's going on because not, the more GitHub discussions are going on. I mean, we have five, about to have six different repos for the decentralized trust graph working group, and so keeping track of what discussion is going on where, it's easy to check the Discord. If all that's there is okay, here's a link, and sort of the reason you might want to go look at this discussion, but it's a one-liner with a link, not trying to carry on the discussion in Discord.
Yeah. Okay, so let me
And
put
could
the
we put
agenda on.
just one last
Oh,
thing? So
go
these are
ahead.
all great, but can we put those actually into the top of the Discord channel too, saying how to use the Discord channel? In other words, you might as well put how to use the Discord channel in the Discord channel, correct?
Sorry, I didn't follow this. So this note is saying we put a pinned link for the discussion threads to the Discord, and you were saying the next thing is
I'm just saying, explain all of this stuff, everything all these capabilities or suggested practices. We just need to have an explanation of what we want people to do to be visible. That's all.
in Discord, right?
In Discord, yeah. And also
Okay. So
over at GitHub. In other words, explain how we want the two channels to interact on both of those channels. That's all I'm saying.
okay. So explanation will go to both places then.
So I don't even
That
know what
will help.
hashtag to go in the Discord. I don't know which one.
You know what? I think there might be a direct link. So let me check that, okay? Let me check
My
that.
my achievement unlocked is that I'm just here in the first place in real time. So it's tough for me to keep on top of all this stuff. Really tough.
Okay, so I'm not sure how, but I can go play around and see. If anybody know, please do that. So you just post the link or something like that. But I will try it definitely myself. All right. So let me put on the agenda today. And again, just a quick notice for the antitrust policy and the trust over IP's IPR policy right there on the top. And for today, other than news and discussions like this, we only have one main topic, that is to review the specification. Specifically, I think we now have three new sections: scope, a terms definitions draft, and the agent framework. So this is basically the wordings going with the diagram, etc. So those are the three things we want to cover. And I think along the way, the discussions on Discord relate to, what we are actually going to be covering or how, etc. I think will become clear. And hopefully, they will naturally, bring up those topics. And so that's the plan. How anyone have comments and suggestions to this plan today?
Well, if we do have time, I would like to discuss the possibility of forming a working group around something we identified in our 2026 goals, which is putting behavioral constraints on agents, and more particularly, perhaps, the data structures for constraints on agents. And
Yeah. So you can think of this has always been other priorities because we've not had time to actually form it. We discussed it a few times in the beginning, and it's been a while, I think. So we could revisit. Let me see if we could put at least open the topic first, right? So let's put some time in the very end, and we'll come back say how should we go do it. So if we form a task force, for example, that would be an excellent idea.
Yeah, I was going to clarify because I may not be able to stay for the whole thing. I think, Steve, we have in mind working groups forms task forces inside of themselves. If you want to form a different working group, that goes up to the Trust Over Steering Committee.
oh
So,
yeah, I guess I meant task force. See,
yeah, task force.
Right, right, right,
I have
right.
to disambiguate that in my mind. Task,
Yep.
smaller
Task
than group.
force.
Smaller
Task
working group.
subset
Yeah.
of group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly,
Task.
exactly.
Task.
So earlier, Eric wanted to form a task force. I think that was preparing, and but it didn't quite happen in the end. So anyway, so we can pick up this in the very end. Let's leave a few minutes to at least open this topic. So with that, should I move to the review session? Give me a second. I need to go find the document. Okay. All right. You can still see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I hope this is rendered correctly. Yes. So we have a short description of the scope and then some terms of definitions. Oh, it actually come up not too bad. Uh, just still learning the format, and then it's the framework. Okay, so maybe we just go through. I'll give everybody a little bit of time to read it, but essentially, um, we would define the framework, and then specifically, we're saying we want to address the issue or solving the problem of two sort of a very generic name meant to be very broad. One is called authorization, the other one is called accountability. And then the second paragraph is trying to say, well, in terms of, for example, authorization, there are a lot of already defined methods. Now, those methods may not be automatically ported over to our scheme, but we could reuse some of the work. So the example, like, I don't know, Drummond, you probably have experience in your um, the graph, well, the relation graph working group, that if we want to share a credential across something, the credential scheme in the past may say, "Oh, I'm using, this lower layer." Some don't, but if it's independently available, then all we need to do is say, "Here is a one method," and we would support that method. So that's one example. So credential exchange, for example, can easily be done in that fashion if the credential format is defined independent of serialization, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to see, I don't use the wrong words there. So for those protocols, we can come over. If they are tied to a serialization, we may be able to say, hey, I can, you know, conceptually move it over, but it's technically a separate protocol by that time. And of course, we can create new schemes that's maybe specifically to solve some of the problems related to AI agents. Um, so those are the basically I put those two categories of methods we could define in this specification. I trying to keep it simple, so this is the beginning point. Let's see if anyone want to comment.
It no, it makes sense to me. I overload because of the term did methods. When I see the term method, I often
Oh,
go, okay. But
what would
what
you suggest? Use something else?
no, not necessarily. It's, like I said, I have to sort of unpack that. But
Yeah.
um
It's just a way.
yeah, it's a way to do so, and I think it's good enough. I mean, we're not talking about did methods here, and that's
No,
fine.
no, no, no,
So
no. So the other word I use is schemes.
yeah, and I think it's okay. So no, I
All
don't.
protocols, you know.
No,
Uh,
it is. I mean, maybe that's one thing. So in um decentralized trust graph working group,
yeah.
where we actually just opened another task force to be specific, and we're calling them the Trust Task Protocols Task Force, and we're going to, as you know, at TSP, what you layer over it is Trust Task Protocols. So we are very specifically going to define Trust Task Protocols and define them in a way such that obviously they can be carried over TSP, but as you said, they potentially, as long as you can move that and meet all the requirements, it could go over another transport. But we want to make sure that we layer it properly so that it is something that goes over TSP. So I don't know if you want to use or introduce any of the trust task language, but
We so I like that because that tied to the terminology already established in TSP. So we'll call those trust task protocols. And so maybe I will look over these and maybe unify those terms a little bit. Um, so that's a good comment. Um,
perfect.
what about the scope itself? Would this be, is that something that matches what you have in your mind, what this spec could do?
It does for me. So that's what I've thought for a while. Plus I like the name T. Um, when this it's a well, actually, let's let folks ask that, and then I want to ask a very
Yeah. Yeah,
simple.
so we probably can go on because we will always come back to the scope question. And maybe going over some of the terms will make this a little bit more clear. Um, so the terms, again, this is like I want to put a one draft out there just to be to get started so we don't we can move forward. We can so essentially, this is really explaining that diagram, which will show up very soon. If the diagram doesn't work.
I think I saw a misspelling of autonomous.
I
What?
probably have a lot of misspellings
I
somewhere.
think it's anatomatous or something like that. You wrote.
Yeah.
It's a
Let me
new
see.
kind of autonomy.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah,
see.
grows its own legs and arms. Yeah, that's the kind I'm worried about.
So let me
AI autonomy. There you go.
autonomous. Yeah. I think the one way to go back to see the diagram is in the. This is awesome. I think this works. Okay, yeah. So this is working, but the sorry. The rendered copy doesn't work. Okay, I need to go debug this, but anyway, let me come back to scope and then terms. So the terms, I will walk through this, and again, the terms are defined to sort of bundled with that diagrams. I will explain both sides. An agent in the easy way, yeah, anatomous. I'm inventing new word there. So in agent, because we have basically agent and a TSP enabled agent or TEA, and so we want to make the word agent slightly more general, and the TEA then is specifically what we are talking about here. Um, so an agent, what it is exactly, I'm seeing like if you look at this definition, and some of them we don't necessarily need a rigorous definition because it doesn't impact how we're going to define the protocol. So agent is one of those. So in this case, we want to say it is autonomous process over some period of time, which is kind of like almost anything because a period of time, we didn't say how long, right? But then, long enough, a lot of these issues will come up. If it's a short that it doesn't come up, then that, I guess it's not. And so in this case, it may be powered by AI in some way and be able to do, a lot of things. It does not have to. The definition doesn't try to say you must. It didn't. And besides, like, what is AI anyway? We cannot define that either, right? So it's okay in that sense. But the implicit context is to say that most likely it could be, AI powered, and some of these whatever AI technology may be used over there, and that's we just leave it in that sense so that uh, so that we can use this term sort of informally and not necessarily very rigorous. Um, and that's that. And therefore we can just going to say agent, AI agents are interchangeably. We don't really need to very strictly separate them.
Yeah,
The
no,
next
this is in line with the traditional definition of an agent. In other words, it's sufficiently pulled out to make me happy.
Okay, okay. The next term, however, need to be more rigorous, right? Because this is sort of like, oh, we're gonna say if you do TEA, then certain properties hold, and therefore this need to be more slightly, it need to be more correct. And so in this case, we basically gonna say a TEA is an agent that is a TSP endpoint, which has verifiable identifiers. They communicate with other TEAs through TSP. And the TEA can interact with other external systems that are not TEAs. And I think the essence is the last sentence, which is it's a unit to be delegated with authority and take actions and be accounted for its effect. And that's what really, because we're talking about authorization and accountability. So what is this? This is whatever you say that has an identifier, and this is the entity that we can do authorization and accountability. You define that's ATA. And again, implicitly, we're saying, as the agents are, that there's an AI, functionality, capability inside of it. But that itself is not strictly enforced here. There's no, we didn't say you must. So with the definition, I think we can now start to specify um, how to do authorization, how to do accountability, different ways. And maybe we can argue once you specify that the method or the trust task, we would be able to show that certain properties hold.
It seems like that's sort of the essence of the paper, right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a layout, both like what we aiming to do and what the end result we think we should achieve, right? And yeah.
It
Uh,
also, I'm just gonna, as we're going through this, I, I'm putting my head as a co-chair of the concept terminology working group. It's meeting the requirements that if you're going to include a glossary up front, just keep it on the most relevant terms to the spec. Most of these terms appear in the Trust RP glossary. So my next question is, are you using spec up T or do you plan to use spec up T? Not that you don't have to.
I think this is spec T, but I want to do those editing later because this.
Yeah,
So I'm taking note that eventually we probably want to go through them and do the linkings, etc. Right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I would like to do those purely editorial things maybe later, so we can move quickly, have a draft.
Right, right. So
Yeah,
what I'm saying is we just were having this discussion as we're starting specs in the decentralized trust graph working group, which is, I mean, there's 500 terms in the trust RP glossary. You don't want to import all those. You want to highlight the terms that are most relevant to understanding this spec. And that's what you're doing here. So that's great.
yeah. There are a few ones I sort of repeat them. So TSP again, I put some wording here, but I'm thinking it's going to be linking back to the TSP specification itself, so I don't have to do it fully here. But I will, add a short copy over here. Same thing for variable identifier. It's not new, so I'm going to point to the TSP document, which point to the references as well. Um, and then the rest, I think, are relatively new. I want to call out that there is a wallet. Again, I've been using a method again, some kind of a secure storage, and so those um, implied. I just want to call out directly because this will be a easier term for the application developers. Um, and again, if you have better word for this, I welcome suggestions. I use either wallet or vault or or just say secure store or something like that. The next is the delegation of authority, and then accountability, and then audit, which sometimes we use as well.
Wait a minute. The delegation of authority. Can you read that first sentence for me? Is that correct?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. What does it mean to say a T may be given by another party?
Oh, I think this grammar is being given by another party, for example, blah blah blah, and then um, a authority. So I
Given,
think that
so you're
grammar
missing the
just
word authority. A TA
yeah
may
yeah
be
yeah
given
yeah yeah
authority by another party. Okay.
yeah, and that this process of giving the authority by another party is called delegation. So we just want to very informally starting to lay the concept of a delegation of authority. And
Yeah.
I didn't go to do like a purely authorization here because the delegation of authority is always somehow delegated. So until, for as long as for the agent, you're supposed to have no, like people say you should not have a assumed authority, which you always have. But anyway, this is the definition of the delegation. Drummond, yes.
I think that both of the points you just mentioned, besides, the missing word authority there in that first part, I think that adding a sentence about the distinction between that and authorization, that you just explained is
Mm,
important because folks can go, why is that? How does this relate to authorization? Because everyone's always, talking about that. So that
yeah.
second distinction, I think,
Okay.
it's really good. Yeah.
Okay. Good suggestion. I like now I read it and I think I should. Yeah. Because there's always in any implementation, right? Once you put it into practice, you always have so-called ambient authority or some other way of doing the authority being given there. So we should call it out. Yes.
Cool.
Um, and then the word of accountability. I don't know whether we should put some examples here, but basically, is um, it's required to observe some rules, and maybe people want to use the duties or things like that, right? And they are not automatically enforced because that's the difference. Authorization, we want to have strict enforcement. The enforcement is built into it, so there's no way to get around it. But accountability often are not enforced directly or immediately. Um, and so that's why the difference between the two. So in this case, also, how do you know that a certain agent observe these rules, even though there's no hard software enforcing it? And that's where so we can go over to say these kind of accountability in practical and more detailed terms, but how would you guys think about this definition?
Well, I mean, this is where the task force I'm proposing would come in. It would create what are the workflows around accountability and how they might operate and how there could be data structures to support those workflows. That's all.
Very good, very good. So Drummond and then Neil.
So, this topic being so important, not just to the spec, but to the whole space, I'm wondering the very distinction you're describing, is it worth actually establishing terms for, and I'm just tossing out machine enforceable accountability and human enforceable accountability, and being able to talk about when explicitly you're talking about one or the other when you need to, because I think it is super important. There are things where machines can enforce that accountability, right? Machine readable policy and the various mechanisms. And then those things, like you point out, full compliance to terms of use agreements is almost impossible with humans to entirely machine enforce. So I'm just suggesting these two subclasses of accountability could be very helpful, not just to this spec. I know we're going to probably need that in the decentralized Swift working group too.
Okay, yeah, I really like that. So I see it as like the first questions about accountability is about, um, I think I should say more precisely, automatically enforced as in prevented, right? So they are not prevented. So that's the definition of accountability. So it's different from authority or authorization. They cannot be prevented automatically. The second thing is about machine enforceable. I think that's the term you use. I would say not enforceable because I want to use the enforcement to mean that they are prevented. So
I see.
enforceable in the sense of it could happen. Cannot be prevented by a machine or a system, but can be caught after the fact.
Right.
You see the difference, right? Because if we
Yes.
can enforce, prevent it already, then it will never happen. And there's no need for accountability in the English term meaning of the term, right? So
Right.
accountability typically in our life means that somebody actually did something already, and then you say, I want to account it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way I define it. And so basically, but we can still say accountability like the machine potentially can implement after fact some penalty or some kind of action based on that. So that would be machine, I don't know what's the right word, addressable or um, uh, yeah. I'm trying to not use enforceable, but essentially you can take action based on that fact, or you can just report to a human in the governance layer, which will then take file a lawsuit or something like that. Then it is a machine addressable problem. So that's maybe we can kind of differentiate that way. But I can easily add the more detail in this section. Okay, Neil, then Tim.
I suspect Tim's going to answer my question for me, but I'll bring it up anyway. Um, it strikes me that we've already got a body of knowledge of this. One is the legal profession that deals with, a principal, third party, and somebody's delegated. The other one is that there's one organization that we know well, which is Glyph, which has been doing that basically combination of, verifiable credentials as delegation to, principally in terms of people, in terms of being able to act with certain behaviors and authorities. But it's a digital chain using verifiable chain of credentials, right? And I think the other thing is that the only way you can have accountability is if you have auditability, meaning you have a complete log of all actions taken, which can be looked at live or after the fact by an auditing third party.
Yes,
Right.
and that's why the two terms are right next to each other. So the next thing is starting to define what is auditing. And if you see the very last term, right, it's really doing auditing. You go to investigation and discovery, and then those are performed after fact, so you need a log. Tim.
Yeah, so the term I like is legal, does something have legal effect? Stuff that just experience that I've had from working on the model law and electronic transferable records. And also, I wouldn't get too hung up on like accountability and audit and that. Like, there's lots of standards around there that do that, conformity assessment standards, like the ISO ones that I have experience with. There's the validation and verification standards, so on and so forth. They're going to take precedence over these definitions. Like you know, what this spec, my view, the purpose of this whole spec is to provide something that's coherent and correct, that it can actually support either an audit or a legal or something that has legal effect and whatever. So I wouldn't get hung up on these terms, because they're beyond the ken of the specification. They're going to be they're going to be uh, surpassed by, or something else is going to take precedence. So I think,
Totally agree. Our
yeah,
definitions, their
yeah,
use are for this document only.
yeah.
And whether
So
other people they use completely different ways, that's entirely up to them. We just
yeah.
want to help tell the story of this specification.
So they're
Yeah.
for information purposes only, not for normative purposes. So I think like I view a lot of the stuff is basically for information purposes, for information, not for normative purposes. I think at the end of the day, where my real interest in the spec is, I know what comes after section 10, what
Right.
exactly is the reference framework, and then
Right.
does
Right.
it logically make sense to me, and does it actually support all those things? Like, if I need to be held to account on this, that
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
it's
You are
coherent.
absolutely right.
Yeah,
And we don't mean to say, hey, this accountability definition need to be adopted by, the Congress or no, we just say to explain how we are constructing the system here. And so we could talk about it in succinct sentences
yeah.
that doesn't have to.
So I'm really keen on seeing that figure 1 and making sure that I understand it. And also the part where I'm still really square zero on is I just feel like the architecture game has completely changed over the last 3-4 months, and I'm just trying to figure out how relevant, not relevant this is with this new agent game that's starting to rewrite absolutely everything, and that's what I don't have a grip on right now.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. The rapid change of agents, yes. Yeah, I've been
That
mostly spending time doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just like I have a very simple contention. It's like architecture defines the rules and architecture defines the power balance. And what I'm witnessing is that all this agent stuff that's going on is kind of rewriting the architectures.
Absolutely.
And I'm just trying to get a handle on a handle on that. Like what I'm
Yeah.
seeing is like user experience software as a service kind of stuff is basically they're getting the AI agents are wiping the floor with how they can do stuff more effectively in that, and I just don't think we have an understanding of what the implications are yet, and that's really what I'm trying to figure out.
Thanks, Tim. Haley, then Drummond.
And perhaps yet another proof point that we're on the hockey stick of the exponential curve, right? It's changing faster, regime changes faster and faster. I wanted to ask, and maybe it's overkill, or maybe this isn't trying to cover it, but we have delegation of authority here, and we have really nice coverage of authority and some of the issues with that, authority hopping and deputy confusion. But might this space be better served with authority and delegation of authority? Because it's also what authority does the agent
Yeah,
have?
yeah. Yeah, you're right. So I would take it similar to earlier Drummond's comment. So we do want to to say both there. Yeah, so I'm going
Okay.
to go trying to cover both and maybe explaining a few of sort of other related terms and the differences what I mean. And I think that will definitely clarify the problem and solution space better that way. Yeah, thank you. Now, Drummond.
Yeah, all it was, I realized that just from a pure terminology standpoint, the distinction I was trying to draw would be better, when it comes up to just distinguish between machine readable policy and human readable policy. Because the whole point of the machine readable policy is so you can enforce it. But if you can't have a machine enforce it, well, by definition, that's something humans got to do, and that's human readable policy. And
Right, right.
so,
I do agree in the past, this machine readable and human readable are important. Now that concept, I understand the concept, but I think it's getting um, because whatever document we write, the machine can read it now. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
I think there's machine specified where you can have reducible programmatic language that the machine can't wiggle around or interpret. But yeah, anything that we can write, even for humans, the LLM
Yeah,
can
but
read
human
and
document,
understand.
right? Legal document, for example,
hmm,
contrast. There's a lot of wiggle room. Humans do that, machines do that. Some say even better today. So I don't know.
So
Maybe what we're really talking about is earlier the term of enforce, prevent, or somehow do accountability, some kind of punishment, something like that. Maybe that's what we're talking about because machines can clearly read them very well.
so
so
can I
yeah,
just oh
can I
go
finish
ahead, Drummond.
just on that one
Yeah,
thread?
yeah,
You're actually convincing me that machine enforceable policy and human enforceable policy would be that actually is a better distinction. Because I've seen your point now that machine readable and the way that we have been thinking about it, that's one of the things that AI is overcoming. So yeah, that's a really good point. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't think AI need too much of our help in formatting or, sometimes actually the formatting discourage it. It would be easier just to write the way, besides we always had a concept of what you call the Ricardian contract so that you make it human readable, not machine readable, so that it can easier be taken by the court. And that might be a benefit actually.
So the courts won't make any distinction between human readable and machine readable. Really what the courts are looking for is control that is a fact that can be established. So if something goes wrong or something goes right, who or what was in control at the time? And then the other part is ownership, which is actually oftentimes a conclusion that the courts rule on who actually owned it at the time and therefore who has the liability. And it doesn't matter, like the mechanisms don't really matter whether it's machine readable or if an agent kind of went rogue and did something, the courts will always say, okay, under whose control was it? Let's establish that as a fact. And that might be a big process to do, but that's what they do. And then after they really try to figure out again, ownership is actually a legal effect. And saying, well, where do we assign the liabilities? So again, I'm not too hung up on kind of machine readable or whether it's an action agent or human or whatever. It's basically the term that I've been using is ultimately there's a beneficial controller that is really like an owner at the end of the day. And anyway, I just what I'm really looking for is what's the model that's coherent that enables me to establish the fact of who's controlling it, under what circumstances, and then a lot of the accountability stuff kind of exists outside of the specification, which is really who is actually responsible for it. And it's not that complicated.
Good. So I think we are on the right track here. And again, these terms are defined to clarify the architecture of the framework, to clarify what do we mean by each component, so they can understand the proposed trust task is better. And this is what the terms are used for. And as long as I think we are on the right track, the meaning, because in the end, the meanings are in the very end decided by people actually put out products in those details that would determine how this, but this mechanism, it is relatable to the end, in the end, the accountability we think of. And that's the purpose of this definition. All right, so we only have 10 minutes, so I want to just quickly show, because this diagram is not working. For some reason, I need to go debug it. So if you want to see the diagram, please go back to the GitHub. And if you go into the spec, and it's in clauses, which is the main body. Okay, and
Is that the
so
diagram there? Is that the main diagram?
this is the main diagram. Yeah, there's 3 diagrams here. I want to show you. Let me put it
Okay, cool.
in the chat. Yes. So this is a diagram, and for folks, in some of the past meetings, you've seen it. I did a few minor editing, but basically this will go into explaining the reference framework, which is these entities right there, and we discuss the core aspects of the framework. And then, these things could then form a network and they all speak TSP. And we also talked about how do you do a composite. You could put them together and name the whole thing as a TEA. That's also fine. So this gives you basically the overall framework of how to construct this thing. And now we are ready to specify, authorization or accountability trust tasks. And that's the overall structure of the document as well.
Yeah, if gonna add like the dotted line there, I view that as what's called the control boundary.
Yep.
And where things get handed off to the agent, and in turn the agent hands off things that get done. And like the other concepts that I'm starting to see, and actually there's a really good book that's getting into this whole architecture, is that, first of all, you need to understand what the intentions of like the human interfaces or the human agents and other agents, what their an intention is, how much autonomy they're giving to the agent, or do they have them on a short leash or a very long leash? And then the other part is adaptation, which is, I think you capture it by the context and memories. Like, how do the agents actually learn when they encounter like situations? And then basically, yeah, and how they, as I said, how they adapt to affect those things on the right hand side. So, it's consistent with my thinking. Is if I go from left to right, you have intention, autonomy, within the box, automation, or sorry, adaptation, and then you have the idea of there's very specific control boundaries or contracts between things that are loosely coupled or autonomous. And as I said, I'm trying to map it back to like if the courts see this thing, like, if you run around the streets with a knife and you get arrested, and in the courts, like, the question is not so much or why that you're running around the street with a knife. It's like, what was your intention to do with that knife? It's like, what were you intended to kill someone, or were you just running around with a knife? And the courts always try to establish that. So I just I'm looking at it from that perspective, and the model there is largely consistent with kind of my thinking, and maybe not as explicit yet, but that's something to figure out as a working group.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, Tim, I've been thinking about these exact issues for a number of months, though not recently. I've mostly thinking about the end of last year. And I put up my paper uh, as a link there if you'd like it. And I'm wondering about what's the book that you referenced?
Oh, it's called Architecture 7 by Adrian Levy. It just came out like about a month ago or so.
Okay.
It is really good. It's a short read. It's only about maybe a couple hour read. This guy is a user experience uh, a guy, and he actually develops like a simple analytical framework, and actually tests like 4 successful use cases, namely a Perplexity browser,
Okay. I get the gist. I'm going to
yeah,
check it
yeah,
out. You don't
yeah,
explain
yeah,
it in detail.
yeah. It's worth the read. It's given me some good theoretical underpinnings that I didn't have.
Okay. Thanks.
You
And
want to hold up the book so we can see it?
Oh, I have it on my Kindle version. So I don't know. Just okay, let me just dang it. I
Neil, you
minimized
want
my
to
screen.
make your comments? I see your hands up.
Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there's one thing I could think to add is, for, specifically for the governance and auditing, is you have a line from other agents to the context and memories, unless you're anticipating having a logging stream somewhere else.
Yeah, so um, if logging happens, and the logging would go somewhere external to it. So for instance, I think in this architecture, because those are for control and management purposes, I would say this is the right circle would be one of those services. So that would be, yeah, and of course, there's no again, these are not necessarily rigorous because we want to showcase all these situations, but of course you can define that as a tool use, as all of those things that doesn't conflict with each other. It just need to go out of the boundary so that it cannot later on change it. And if you can, design a scheme that it could not be later modified, then it doesn't matter where that lock sits. But if it does, then the lock should go out of the boundary, so it cannot do anything with it.
Yeah, definitely black box.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so that concludes this. Give me a few minutes for Steve. You want to talk about the task force?
Yeah, I just want to investigate what we can do within that task force to, improve accountability and improve the supporting architecture underneath that. I am also working with the GleaNet Alliance, and so I have their fiduciary duty framework as the basis of my own work. And I have elaborated out a large number of fiduciary duties for agents and how they interact. And I can attach that paper as well. Um, but I would basically like to, just begin to discuss different types of architecture that could be supported to enforce duty frameworks or anything else that would be a basis of accountability.
Yeah. So the question for task force usually, and you can think about, is I think if you talk to Eric, right, his first problem is do you want a separate meeting or the same meeting? Actually, that's the hardest resource we have. So, but I think this is great. We have some work early on these kind of management and different ideas. And if we can sort of propose a certain kind of fiduciary duty framework that is, really tied to this spec, I think that would be wonderful. Because this is one of those new things we can do, right? And it's not our task or trust tasks on the top are not singular. I hope I put that idea very so we could essentially support multiple different schemes of how to do certain things. So I would definitely
So
support that.
my recommendation is to start as a standing item on the agenda
Yeah,
and see how it goes. I'm over fatigued with working
more
groups and task
meetings.
force and foundations and that. And I'd say the first step is like schedule some time for the next meeting, whatever time it takes to kind of introduce the concepts
Yeah,
and that.
yeah, what?
Uh, Again, I'm just being very
Yeah, I
very
mean, I'm
pragmatic
I'm
here.
willing to do that. I'm willing to take
Yeah, yeah, cool.
5 minutes every meeting to just sort of promote the project and tell you what I've personally done with it. And then as
Yeah,
other
super.
people latch onto it from my momentum, yada yada yada. So that's the idea.
Yeah, and the people that will really care will jump on it, and that's
Right.
great. And then
Okay.
we
If
just go
we
Well,
from
have
there.
a critical mass forming that way, yes, we
yeah,
could
then we
say
can form a
at some
task force.
point we could say, "Damn, we need another meeting." Then
Exactly. That's perfect.
fine.
That's why task forces let them self-organize. And I'm putting my hand simply to say, uh, what at first person project, we're just calling it fiduciary AI, and we're super interested in it. We think it's one of the most important topics in the space. So I've been trying to flag Haley's attention so that we can finally talk about what possibly the singularity.net is helping might help in that area. So yeah, super cool topic. I got another call I got to
Yeah.
jump to, but
Yeah. All right.
just
I'd like
wanted
to
to
be
say
that
that.
conversation three-way if you guys have it. Okay.
Okay,
Beautiful.
cool.
Okay, so starting from next meeting, we'll have that as our, a standing topic.
Cool.
Okay.
How's that? Yeah.
Thanks everyone. You
All
bet.
right.
Yeah,
I,
I just dropped in the chat there as an article by the same author on the topic that's online. It's in the chat.
Oh, beautiful.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it really caught my attention. It's well worth it. And then I decided to pursue the book and highly recommend it.
Yeah. Sorry about my typing. I'm horribly bad. So the yeah, I'll be fixing them. Thank you very much. So
The agent will handle it soon, Wenjing.
I know.
They gotcha.
But yeah, usually they don't care. They seem to understand, no matter how bad
It's all
my
a token.
writing is.
It's all a token.
It's on the token, yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. See you next week. Thank you, Steve. Bye-bye.